If you're new to RPG developer Bakin, you might be looking for an easy project you can make from start to finish. It might help you get used to the engine a bit. And if you fancy yourself a writer, I can recommend a visual novel. While there are other engines for visual novels, I think one of the advantages of RPG developer Bakin is that it's very powerful, and once you know your way around the engine, you can add some more advanced gameplay, like exploration, 3D characters, or a battle system. But today, we will focus on making an easy project for beginners. Or at least easy from a technical perspective, because I spent way too long writing this dialogue just for a simple example project. When you first open RPG developer Bakin, it might look a little bit like this. If your top menu isn't showing for whatever reason, it's probably because you minimized it. You can maximize it again by clicking this little arrow. You click the Create New option and then use this little assistant to help us create the game. I just walk you through the options really quick. I have decided to make a short story about an innkeeper, so I'm going to name it The Innkeeper's Tea. This is probably the most important setting. We're going to select normal for the asset amount setting because we'll be using only the default assets. We don't have to import our own assets for this short example project. We really won't be needing the player settings, so we can just leave them blank for now. I'm just going to name our hero Teki because she's an innkeeper and she'll be named after a friend of mine. We won't be using the camera settings, and we won't be using any operation method. This is just a visual novel. Also, don't select any of these action settings. Just get right into the good stuff. Now, if you test play your game, select No for the automatic map generation. And now your game might look something like this. Amazing, I know. After selecting the Start Editing Your Game option, your user interface will look something like this. One thing I want to mention is if you ever have any palettes that are showing up for me but aren't showing up for you, this is just general advice for following tutorials. Remember to check this drop-down menu called View. For example, I'm missing the stamps palette, which usually should be open so that I can easily add events and objects. After selecting it, now it's open again. Now the first thing I'd like to do is open up this little menu and then look at the game definition options. Here we have an option called Rules and Operations, and I just want to adjust some settings. The first thing I'd like the game to do is skip the title screen so I don't have to bother pressing play every time I'm testing the game. The next thing I want to do is disable the camera operation in the camera operation settings. And the last thing we'll do right here is turn the footstep volume down to 0. No footsteps. So as you can see, the skip title screen option is now activated and the disable camera operation option is activated. If we test our game, it should now look like this. We can still walk around, but there's no footstep sounds anymore and we can't move the camera. This step is completely optional, but I just like to make sure we have a black screen as a basis to work with that we can display images on top of, just so there won't be any unexpected graphical behavior. First thing we'll do is go to the terrain options and select the black color block. Fill all the terrain in with this black color. And then we'll open the map settings dialog. Now remember, if it isn't showing up for you here for some reason, you should find this in the View drop-down menu. Here are the map settings. I'm going to rename the map Start. disable this when this visible option isn't referring to the map itself, but the name of the map. So there won't be like start or map 1 displayed every time we enter this map. And then another cool option is under rendering, we can select the skit scene post effect settings. This is exactly for this kind of scenario where you're making characters talk in the void or just don't want any skybox. If you've ever wondered how you can select a different skybox, this is a very easy way to do it with just different kind of weather options and so on. But today we won't be focusing on that. Remember, we want to keep it simple. Now we're test playing the game and we've successfully created a black screen. Theoretically, we're still walking around in the background, but we can't really see it. And it doesn't really matter because walking will be blocked anyway once we enter the visual novel aspect of our game. Now, if you want to experiment with the 3D options of RPG developer Bakin a little more, you could theoretically create whatever background you have for your visual novel in 3D and then use that as the background of your cutscene, so to speak. But today that won't be the focus of this tutorial. We'll just use a simple image as the background. Now to do this, we'll finally go to the Events tab and create a custom event. Remember, if the stamps palette isn't showing up for you like it did for me, remember the View drop-down menu. Doesn't really matter where we put this event, just put it on the map. It might look like this for you, or it might look like that. There's two different editing methods, the panel method and the text method. I just personally prefer the text method. You can also select the trigger point for when the event starts over here in the panel method, but since we'll be using the text method, it's up here. You could use the automatically start only once option or the automatically start repeat option. I'm going to use repeat just because it's going to loop anyway, because we don't have a title screen, and then it just loops a little faster and I can test things out easier. To display the image, we're going to click the Insert Event Panel option or double click over here, which is my preferred method. Now I already have it open. You have different categories over here, and there's a screen effect option, and then we're going to display image. We're going to select the image. Now the Smile Game Builder pack has a lot of cool background images under, where is it? 2D background over here. See, there's like a cool forest or something. But unfortunately, there's not really a tavern, which is what I'll be needing. So I'll have to import something from my local files. Just 1 second. I found this tavern interior by Pazua on DeviantArt. And they're saying I released this under Creative Commons. No attribution needed, although it is appreciated. Looking at it a little closer, it might be AI generated. You never know with these things. But looking at these stools over there, I don't really know what's going on. But at least I tried to find something original that I'm allowed to use. And this is just for the tutorial anyway. Going back to Bakin, we can find our new image under local files. And then you can just navigate to the folder you saved your image in and select it. It will tell you that you've added the image or texture to your project. And now we'll just make sure that it's big enough to cover the whole screen by clicking on Specify Display Position. Here there will be a little bit of this transparency checkerboard because this image is actually not big enough to cover the whole screen. if you have imported one of the Smile Game Builder pack backgrounds, you will probably run into a similar problem. Maybe you have some kind of really high definition image and it just is too big and you want to make it a little smaller. Right now in magnification ratio it's saying that the X value is stretched at 100% and the Y value is stretched at 100% as well. If we change this number, it will shrink the image and stretch it down on the X ratio or stretch it more on the X ratio. Same for the Y ratio. Since we want to make the image a little bigger, we can enter, for example, 130 over here. Okay, now it's stretched 130% on the X-axis, and because that makes it look a little weird, we have to adjust the Y-axis as well. We can even move around the image a little bit by dragging it with our mouse. I want to hide the weird stool situation as much as possible, so maybe let's do this. Okay. And we're done. And now we finally got our game to show an image after we started. Yay! We have to go back into our event, and maybe your UI looks like this and you can't find your event. What we should do now is press this little star over here, and now we have some really cool icons showing us where the start position of our player would be. Theoretically, I mean, we're not using that option. And the event we just created is shown to us with a big green E. You can just double click it now or select it and press the T button on your keyboard. Then now add another event panel by clicking Insert Event Panel or double clicking End of Event. In the command selector that just opened up, go to the Conversation category, and for now we'll just display a simple message. The message might say something like, "You're cleaning a glass at the bar of your inn when suddenly the door opens and reveals a mysterious stranger." You can ignore all of these other options down here and just click OK. Click Apply, OK, and now we're going to test play our game again. Yay, it worked! I like to use this message box for narration or other stuff where none of the characters are talking. For the most of you this might be obvious, but if you're new to this kind of editor, remember that display message comes after display image. So it shouldn't be, for example, like this, where it's display message and then display image. If you have it for whatever reason in this order, you can select display message, cut it out by right-clicking and selecting cut, or pressing Ctrl X, and then select after the display image and insert it by Ctrl V or pasting. Again, for some of you this might be super obvious, but if you're new to this, just think of it like a screenplay that you're reading, where from top to bottom the different instructions will tell the actors, or in case the engine, what to do in which order. So display the image first and then display the message. Next step, adding dialogue. We'll now add dialogue by either selecting Insert Event Panel or double-clicking End of Event again. Now we'll select in the Conversation category the Display Conversation option. Now maybe the innkeeper will say something to the mysterious stranger like, "My God, you're soaked to the bone." Now we get to the really fun part. We get to select the images of whoever is talking and whom they are talking to. In this case, I want to use the white mage and the black mage because you'll see in a bit that their images look the most like something from a visual novel or maybe even a dating sim. So I think using them would be really cute for this particular game. We'll click on the Cast 1 option, select our main character, which can be found under Resource 2D Stamps, 2D Casts for Conversation, Hero Casts, and then the White Mage, which is this pink-haired girl, as you can see. And for Cast 2, we'll select the Black Mage. He can be found in the same menu where we just found our main character, but he'll be under the Black Mage option. And then, just like for the White Mage, we'll select the sprite without the weapon. Here he is, he's super tall and he has big yaoi hands. These little radio buttons help you select who is talking, and you can only ever select one of them. Obviously the White Mage will be talking, or in our case the Innkeeper, because she's talking to the mysterious stranger and saying, "My God, you're soaked to the bone." Ignore the billboard option and ignore any of the window display position thingies. Use Map's light source can also be ignored for now, but I recommend leaving it checked because maybe later on you'll have a 3D environment on your map and then you don't have to go back and select the Use Map's light source option for every piece of conversation. Apply, OK, and test play. You're cleaning a glass at the bar of your inn when suddenly the door opens and reveals a mysterious stranger. "My God, you're soaked to the bone!" So you might have noticed a few things. First of all, their expressions are kind of dead. Second of all, they do actually have blinking animations and they have mouth animations. But because the mouth animations are happening so fast you can barely see it for our heroine. See, she opened her mouth really fast that one time. She was like, "My God, you're soaked for the bone." She was like, blah, 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 and then she was done talking. We want her to slow down a little bit more. Another thing you might have been able to tell is that we can't tell for sure who's talking right now. And it would be a little bit easier if we could see right away which of the two characters is saying this. Now, I like to display both characters at the same time. You could, of course, only display whichever character is talking right now. I prefer doing it like this, but then you would also have to display a name box, like name of the speaker above this little dialogue window. And we'll do that in a little bit. Opening the display conversation option by double-clicking it. And then we will do two things. You click input support and look for the lip sync speed option. Now, as you can tell, there's also a blink rate and a blink speed option, but there's very little documentation on them. If you are already a little bit more experienced, you can experiment with them. But for now, we're going to ignore them because it's a little advanced. What we'll do is we'll click the lip sync speed option and it will add a little bit of syntax or code, for lack of a better word, to our text. Don't be intimidated, it's very easy to use. All you do is insert a number over here depending on how fast you want the lip sync for the dialogue to be. For example, I would recommend adding anything between 0.1 and 0.5, or a 0 if you don't want any lip sync at all. For example, for our main character, I think she would have a little bit of a faster lip sync. She's very excited. So we will go with a lip sync speed of 0.4. The next thing we wanted to do is display a nameplate or name box or whatever you would like to call it. We can find this in the name box option. There's 3 for name box on the left, a name box in the center, or a name box on the right. I'm going to use a name box on the left for our main character and a name box on the right for the mysterious stranger. We'll do them in a little bit. First, let's start with the name box on the left, and please make sure your cursor is not in between any of this piece of code, okay? Because \lib spd and then 0.4 in the brackets, this has to be in one piece or it won't work. It will display all weird. So put your text cursor behind this piece of syntax and select the name box left option. We'll put down a \npl and then the option to insert the speaker name in the little brackets. Teki. Another thing I'd like to add is some more emotion. Now Teki sees the mysterious stranger entering her inn on a stormy night. She's not really expecting any visitors, so she's very shocked. We have a few different emotions we can select down here, and a surprising emotion makes her kind of look very surprised and shocked. As you can see, she widens her eyes a little bit. And maybe the mysterious stranger, we have a few options for him. He's not really expressive in his sprites. The differences in his face are very subtle. I do want to select the sweat smile option, which makes him look kind of embarrassed, kind of out of place. And as you can see, she's going to talk a little bit slower and she looks more shocked. There's also a little nameplate here showing that she's the one who's talking right now. For the next step, I'm going to have the mysterious stranger reply to Teki, our main character. For that, I'm going to select the display conversation event panel that we added, copy it and paste. It should be added after the display conversation of Teki. And we're going to edit it a bit. First of all, the nameplate is going to be on the right, so instead of NPL, it's going to be NPR. Obviously, if you don't feel confident going in here and changing that, you can just delete it all and add it in back again by using input support. But I'm going to be using this by writing NPR. The name of the mysterious stranger is not yet known, so it's going to be displayed as question mark, question mark, question mark. And then his lip speed is maybe a little bit slower than hers. He's more intimidating and mysterious. He's not super fast talking and expressive like she is. So I'm going to put that at a 0.3. And then he's maybe going to say something like, "Sorry, do you think I could maybe stay here until the storm subsides?" Now we can adjust the expressions here. I would suggest to usually leave whoever isn't talking at the last expression they just had. So Teki was surprised when he entered. She's still going to be surprised while he's talking, at least in most cases. Because in some cases you might want to use it and then actually maybe she suddenly looks angry. Maybe she does recognize him all of a sudden. You know, you can create some mystery with this. Why is she is she suddenly blushing even while he's already starting to talk? You can add some subtle details with this, but I recommend not using it too much because it's just going to make them switch up their expression the entire time. I think my favorite way to use it is to show that a character is being dishonest. So they will say their line and they will look very sad, but then as soon as somebody else is talking and the focus isn't back on them, and again they just look disinterested, and it can be a very subtle way of conveying that. For now we're going to leave her on surprised, and for him we could actually leave it at the sweat smile option, but maybe he's sad. Maybe he started off being embarrassed, but then when he gets this very warm welcome, he is actually a little bit touched by it. And then he actually apologizes and looks more sad as he's saying that. Let's give that a try. The last thing we'll have to do is obviously select the Make Cast to Talk option, so that the mysterious stranger will actually be the one who's talking. You're cleaning a glass at the bar of your inn, when suddenly the door opens and reveals a mysterious stranger. My God, you're soaked to the bone! Sorry, do you think I could maybe stay here until the storm subsides? Now that we're done with this part, we can just have them, have that little back and forth. Whenever Teki's talking, I like to just select this, copy and paste it, and then double click it and adjust for whichever changes there are. So for example, Teki might say, "Of course, don't just stand there, take a seat. Let me get you something to drink." And she will smile. So we will select happy. And then remember, the mysterious stranger was sad in his earlier dialogue, so unless we want to make him seem super hyper, like he keeps switching between emotions or very disingenuous, we should also still select sad. And then whenever he replies, we will copy and paste his little bit of dialogue from earlier and then adjust over here. She's still happy. He maybe he's embarrassed again. Oh, I really wouldn't want to trouble you. Now you've learned the basics of doing dialogue like this. There's just one thing left which we're going to do, which is to add music and sounds. So I'm going to show you really quickly how to do that. We will go on Insert Event Panel, Sounds, play BGM, which stands for background music, of course. And then there's a lot of default tracks you can choose from, but personally, I think it's not actually BGM bar, which is very fitting for this scenario. I prefer BGM countryside. Sounds very nice, but maybe we can turn down the volume a little bit and also make it slower and deeper with this little adjust tempo option. We will then select an environmental sound. Click here. This part is a little bit confusing because you can select again between BGM, environmental sound and sound effect over here. What's actually happening is that there's 3 resources that you can choose from, which just decides which track you're going to choose, and 3 channels that you can play this audio track on. For example, if I'm going to select another background music here, like the BGM battle option, because I use the play environmental sound command to play it instead of play BGM, it will not replace the currently playing BGM, but play it on top of the other BGM, and it will just sound like a giant mess. But we can actually use that to our advantage, because what I want to have in my game is the sound of a storm in the background, but also the sound of the crackling fire. I want to select down here in the effects folder the SE Field Storm 01 sound effect. It sounds like this. Maybe comes down a little, and then also make it more slow. It just sounds further away like this. And now I'm also going to play Crackling Fire, because I'm not going to use the play environmental sound channel, but the play sound effect channel. It's actually going to play at the same time. If I were to use play environmental sound and selected the crackling fire, we couldn't hear the storm anymore. But this way I can choose 2 sounds playing at the same time. I'm gonna max out the volume settings for the small fire so you can actually hear it, and then I'm going to show you what the finished example of what a small visual novel you can make in Bakin might look and sound like. That was it for today. Thank you everybody so much for watching, and I really hope you can make the visual novel of your dreams with Bakin, or maybe even a more complex game, whichever you want. In any case, I know Bakin might not be the easiest engine to use for something like this, but I think maybe this still helped you, get used to everything and take your first little baby steps with the program. Either way, good luck with your development journey, and maybe we'll see each other around in the game jam sometime. Bye!